German Shepherd gives birth. Then doctors whisper, "These aren't puppies." Before you start, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. People in Maple Ridge were used to quiet nights, but no one expected the night that changed everything. It all started with a German Shepherd named Ruby. She was loyal, calm, and loved by everyone who knew her. Her owner, Mark, had waited for weeks for her to give birth. He thought it would be one of the happiest moments of his life. He had no idea that within a few hours he would be standing in a vet clinic with doctors staring at him in fear. The night began like any normal one. The street outside was silent except for a few passing cars. Inside Mark's small house, Ruby paced around her blanket. She kept looking at him with wide, worried eyes. Her breathing grew heavier every minute. Mark stayed by her side, talking to her softly, trying to keep her calm. He had set everything up. Towels, warm water, a soft bed. He had read all the things a new dog owner should know. But nothing he read prepared him for what was coming. Ruby let out a low cry, her body tensing. The first newborn was on the way. Mark leaned closer, his heart racing. He expected a tiny puppy with soft fur and gentle sounds. But as soon as the first newborn came out, his smile faded. Something was wrong. The newborn didn't look like a puppy at all. Its fur was too pale. His shape was strange. Its small body twitched in an odd way that made Mark's stomach tighten. He tried to steady his breathing. Maybe it was normal. Maybe some puppies were born looking different. Ruby nuzzled the newborn as if everything was fine, but the strange, sharp cry it let out didn't sound like a puppy. It echoed in the room in a way that made the hair on Mark's arms stand up. Before he could process anything, another newborn came. Then another. Each one looked the same. Pale. Oddly shaped. Moving in a way he had never seen. Not one looked like a German Shepherd puppy. Not even close. Fear crept into his chest. He didn't want Ruby to feel his worry, but he couldn't hide it. He searched his phone, scrolling through pictures of newborn German Shepherds, trying to compare them. Nothing matched. Not even slightly. His hands shook as he wrapped the newborns in a blanket. Ruby looked at him, confused and tired, trusting him with everything she had. "We're going to the vet," he whispered. He carried Ruby and the strange newborns to his truck. The cries coming from the blanket sounded sharper with every passing second. By the time he reached the clinic, his heart felt like it was beating out of his chest. What he didn't know was that the moment he pushed open the clinic door, the staff would stop in their tracks. The nurses would whisper. The doctor's face would go pale. And everyone in the room would soon realize the same chilling truth. These were not puppies. The room turned tense the moment Mark stepped inside. The newborns kept making those sharp, thin cries from inside the blanket, and every person in the clinic froze as if the sound cut through them. A nurse hurried over and led Mark to an exam room, her eyes flicking nervously toward the blanket he was holding. Mark set Ruby on the floor and laid the newborns gently on the table. Ruby stayed close, her tail low, her breathing still heavy from the long night. She didn't understand what was happening, but she knew something wasn't right. Dr. Wilson walked in a moment later. He had been a vet for more than 20 years, known for calming worried pet owners and handling difficult cases. But when he pulled back the blanket, his calm expression faded. His eyebrows tightened. His mouth pressed into a thin line. He picked up one of the newborns very carefully. The tiny creature twitched in that strange stiff way again. Its fur looked almost white, glowing under the clinic light. Its tiny chest rose and fell fast, but the rhythm wasn't normal. Its cry was too sharp, too high, almost like it didn't belong to any animal Mark had ever heard. Dr. Wilson looked at Mark. His voice dropped. "This isn't what a German Shepherd puppy looks like." Mark swallowed hard. "So, what are they?" The doctor didn't answer right away. He checked the legs, the spine, the head shape. Every second he examined the newborn, his face grew more confused. Then worried. "They're alive," he finally said. "But their bodies aren't shaped like canine newborns. Their bones feel different. Their skin is too thin. And their cries. I've never heard anything like it." Mark felt the room spinning. He wanted to deny it, but deep down he had known from the moment he saw them. Ruby nudged one of the newborns gently, trying to pull it closer. She didn't see anything strange. To her, they were her babies. Dr. Wilson asked a nurse to bring X-ray equipment. Another nurse stood in the corner whispering nervously to someone else. Mark caught small pieces of their words. "They don't look normal. What are they? Should we even touch them?" Ruby growled softly when the nurses got too close. She pressed her body between them and her newborns. Her instincts were strong. She wasn't going to let anyone take them away. The X-ray images appeared on the screen a few minutes later. Mark stared at them, his heart thudding painfully. The bones looked nothing like the images he had seen online when he tried to learn more about puppy births. These bones looked thinner, shorter, almost twisted in places. Dr. Wilson took a shaky breath. "I'm calling specialists. This is beyond anything I've ever seen." Mark's legs felt weak. His hands began to sweat. The room felt smaller with every passing second. He looked down at Ruby, who nudged his hand as if begging him to stay strong. He didn't know how to tell her that even the doctors didn't know what she had given birth to. And whatever they were, the truth was becoming harder to ignore. Within an hour, the quiet clinic turned into a place filled with tension. 2 specialists arrived from the city, both carrying cases of equipment. They walked into the exam room and stared at the newborns as if they weren't sure what they were looking at. Mark stood in the corner, his arms crossed tightly, trying to hide how scared he felt. The specialists began their checks. They wore serious expressions, talking softly to each other while taking notes. One tested the newborn's reflexes. Another listened to their breathing. Each time one of them leaned closer, Ruby growled low in her throat. She didn't trust anyone near her babies, and Mark had to keep calming her with gentle pats. The specialists asked for more tests. Blood tests, swabs, small samples. Ruby growled again when needles came out, but Mark held her steady, whispering to her until she relaxed enough to let the doctors work. The newborns let out those sharp, strange cries each time they were touched. The sound made everyone in the room shift uncomfortably. When the samples were sent to the lab, the room settled into a heavy silence. One of the specialists stepped aside to look at the X-ray images again. The other stood by Mark. "I won't lie," she said quietly. "We don't have answers yet. Their bodies don't match any newborn animal we work with. They share some features with puppies, but the differences are too large." Mark felt like the floor was slipping from under him. "So they're not dogs?" he asked. "We don't know what they are," she replied. "Not yet." The words hit him hard. Ruby didn't care. She curled herself around the newborns again, licking them and keeping them close as if nothing unusual was happening. She didn't care about tests or reports. She only cared that her babies were alive. Hours passed before the specialists returned with updates. They stood together, their faces tight with concern. "The results we have so far don't match anything in our records," one said. "Their DNA has some canine parts, but also many things we don't recognize. They were born from a dog, yes, but their bodies don't behave like puppies." Mark rubbed his forehead. His chest felt heavy. He didn't want to panic, but how could he stay calm? Nothing made sense. Another strange cry came from the incubator, sharper than before. One of the nurses flinched at the sound. "We've never had newborns cry like that," she whispered. The specialists agreed to continue studying them, but even they looked uneasy. Something about the newborns bothered them in a way they couldn't put into words. Mark looked down at Ruby again. She lifted her head and rested it on his knee, her eyes full of trust. She didn't care what anyone said. She didn't care how strange her babies looked. She only knew they needed her. Mark placed a hand on her back. "We're not leaving them," he murmured. "No matter what anyone thinks." But even as he said the words, he felt the fear growing. If the doctors couldn't explain what these newborns were, then someone else would want to. And soon, more people would start asking questions he wasn't ready to answer. By the next morning, everything changed. Mark hadn't slept at all. He sat beside Ruby the entire night, listening to the newborn's strange little cries and watching the doctors move in and out of the room. They were trying to act calm, but their worried faces said everything. When Mark finally stepped out to get some water, he noticed the waiting area wasn't normal anymore. People were whispering. Some were holding their pets close, staring at him with unsure eyes. A man leaned toward his wife and whispered loud enough for Mark to hear. "Is he the one with the weird puppies?" Mark felt his stomach twist. He didn't answer. He walked back toward the exam rooms, trying to ignore the looks. Then he saw something worse. Through the front windows, a small group of people stood outside. Some had their phones out. One woman was recording a video, talking excitedly. A teenager tried to peek through the glass doors as if expecting something shocking inside. Mark froze. "How did anyone find out?" he whispered. When he returned to Ruby's room, a nurse gently closed the door behind him. She looked stressed. "People outside are talking," she said. "Someone must have heard the newborns yesterday. The sound they make, it isn't normal. Someone probably recorded it." Mark felt a cold rush through his chest. This was the last thing he wanted. Ruby didn't deserve this attention. She was already stressed and exhausted from giving birth. Inside the room, Ruby nudged her newborns closer again. She didn't understand the panic outside. To her, the world was simple. Her babies cried, so she cared for them. That was all she knew. Dr. Wilson returned with more papers. He placed them on the counter, running a hand through his hair. He looked more tired than Mark had ever seen him. "We're getting calls from other clinics," he said. "People heard rumors. They want to know what we found." Mark shook his head. "Please don't tell them anything. I don't want this to become some big story." "I wish I could stop it," the doctor said, "but once something spreads online, it's hard to control." The newborns let out another series of high sharp cries. Even the doctor flinched at the sound. It didn't matter how many times they heard it. It never felt normal. Dr. Wilson checked the results again. "Their DNA tests aren't finished yet, but what we do know is still confusing. They're part canine, but the rest isn't clear. They don't match any known animal." Mark leaned against the wall, feeling crushed by the weight of everything. He didn't want these newborns to be treated like objects. They were alive. They were Ruby's children. Ruby stood and placed her head against Mark's leg as if she sensed he needed comfort more than she did. A nurse knocked and stepped inside. "There are more people outside now," she said quietly. "Some are reporters." Mark's heart dropped. Reporters? Over this? All he wanted was to protect Ruby and the newborns, but now the entire town was talking. And soon more people would come, people who wanted answers or pictures or stories that didn't belong to them. Ruby let out a soft whine and curled herself around the newborns again. Mark knelt beside her, placing a hand on her back. "I'm not letting anyone take them," he whispered. "I don't care what they are. They're yours." But outside the clinic, the crowd kept growing. And it was only the beginning. The clinic finally grew quiet near sunset. Most of the reporters had been pushed back by security, and the crowd outside slowly faded. But the pressure inside the building wasn't gone. Everyone knew something unusual had happened, even if no one could explain it. Dr. Wilson returned with the final lab report in his hand. Mark stood up as soon as he walked in. Ruby watched too, her ears up, her body wrapped protectively around the newborns. The doctor took a long breath. "We compared their DNA with every animal we have records for," he said. "Dogs, wild animals, even rare breeds. Nothing matches. They only share small pieces of canine DNA. The rest, we don't have names for." Mark stared at him. "So what are they?" "I don't know," the doctor said quietly. "All I can tell you is that they're alive, and Ruby cares for them like any mother would. Whatever they are, that part is real." Mark looked at Ruby. She gently pushed one of the newborns closer to her chest, licking its head. Her eyes were calm and sure, as if she knew something everyone else didn't. The doctor continued, "We can't keep them here forever. With all the attention, it's safer if you take them home. Keep them warm. Keep them close to Ruby. And keep them away from people who only want pictures or rumors." Mark nodded. He didn't need to think twice. He gathered Ruby's strange little family with the same care he would have given to any normal litter. The newborns twitched in their odd little way, but they stayed quiet as Ruby leaned her head close to them, making a soft rumble only a mother dog could make. As Mark carried them out through the back door, the sky was turning orange. Ruby walked by his side, tired but proud. He didn't know what he would face in the coming days. He didn't know if the world would ever understand what these newborns were. But he knew one thing for sure. They were Ruby's. And because of that, they were worth protecting. At home, he placed them gently in their warm corner. Ruby curled around them right away, and for the first time in days, Mark felt a quiet sense of peace. The world outside might see mystery, fear, or even danger. But here in this quiet room he saw something else. Life. Love. And a story that would never be forgotten. Did you enjoy this story? If you were in Mark's place and your dog gave birth to newborns that didn't look like puppies at all, would you keep them safe at home or let the doctors take over? Yes or no? Tell us in the comments. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who loves dogs. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have an amazing day.